What's up, my people? Welcome back to the channel. Today we have a lot to unpack because dancehall is once again filled with debates, opinions, indirect shots, and questions about who really deserves the title of king. We are talking about Vybz Kartel, Mr. Vegas, Jeffrey, Fambo, Beanie Man, Masicka Skillibeng, Popcorn, Black Rhino, Alkaline, and several other names who have become part of the conversation. So let's get straight into it. One of the biggest talking points is a post from Vybz Kartel celebrating his international achievements. Kartel highlighted the fact that he is the only Jamaican artist to sell out Barclay. That statement immediately got people talking. Why? Because Masicka has also been receiving plenty of attention following his major Barclays Center performance, and naturally fans started comparing the achievement of the two artists. Now, there is nothing unusual about an artist celebrating his accomplishment. Every entertainer has the right to celebrate milestones that mean something to them, but when a statement comes at a time when another artist is being heavily praised for a similar achievement, people are naturally going to ask whether there is a deeper message behind it. And that is where the debate begins. Is Kartel simply reminding everybody of his own accomplishment, or is he responding to the conversation surrounding Masicka? That is something only Kartel himself can answer. But one thing is undeniable: whenever Vybz Kartel make a statement about his achievements, dancehall fans immediately start analyzing every word. And this is where Mr. Vegas enters the conversation. Mr. Vegas recently disagreed with comments made by Jeffrey, and the discussion quickly turned towards Vybz Kartel influence on dancehall. Vegas has been around long enough to understand what it means to be at the top of the Jamaican music industry. He has experienced the international side of dancehall, toured, performed major shows, and watched the genre evolve through several generations. So when Mr. Vegas speaks about the history and development of dancehall, people are naturally going to listen. The argument being made is essentially that Vybz Kartel played a major role in changing what artists believe was possible for a dancehall performer. Think about the modern dancehall business. Artists are now thinking about international tours, major venues, streaming numbers, branding, merchandise, and building their own businesses around music. And Vybz Kartel's career is certainly part of the larger evolution. But here is where the disagreement comes in. Does acknowledging Kartel contribution mean every other dancehall legend has to minimize their own achievement? Absolutely not. And that is where I think this conversation needs some balance. Mr. Vegas has his own history, Beanie Man has his own history, Bounty Killer has his own history, Shaggy and Sean Paul have their own international accomplishments, and Vybz Kartel has his own unique contribution. Dancehall is not the work of one person. It is a culture built on generation of artists, producers, selectors, engineers, songwriters, and fans. So when we talk about who changed dancehall, we should be able to recognize multiple people at the same time. Now let's talk about Masicka. Masicka has been receiving tremendous attention, particularly around his international performances and his growing fan base. Some people arguing that the current generation is beginning to look toward Masicka and Alkaline as major figures for the future of dancehall. Others believe Vybz Kartel remain firmly at the top, and this is where the debate becomes interesting. Because dancehall does not have one official scoreboard, there are different ways to measure greatness. You can measure its songs, you can measure album sales, you can measure streaming numbers, you can measure international performance, you can measure lyrical ability, and depending on which measurement you choose, you could come up with a completely different answer. That is why argument like this person is the king can become endless. One fan is talking about influence, another is talking about current popularity, another is talking about international success, another is talking about lyrics, and everybody is using a different measuring stick. Another interesting part of the discussion came from Freedom, who was asked about an uncomfortable truth truth that established artists may be reluctant to discuss publicly. His answer touched on subjects involving the music industry, controversy, social issues, and the pressure artists face when they decide to speak their mind. And honestly, this is something worth considering. Artists don't operate in a vacuum. They have records, managers, promoters, business relationships, fans, families, and when an artist decide to speak about a controversial subject, there can be consequences. Sometimes an entertainer may genuinely believe something but decide not to say it publicly because they don't want to get the backlash. And that is why freedom comments have generated discussion. Should artists speak their mind regardless of the consequences, or should they be strategic because they have careers and businesses to protect? That is a debate that is not going away anytime soon. Another controversial statement making the rounds involve criticism of certain Rastafarian artists and the suggestion that some people believe the music industry need to change. Now, I'm not going to present that opinion as a fact, but the statement itself has triggered debates about the direction of Jamaican music. Dancehall and reggae have always had different philosophies. Some artists focus on entertainment, commentary, spirituality, politics, and some focus on street realities, and others simply want to make music that people can enjoy. The beauty of Jamaican music is that all of those voices can exist. The bigger question is whether artists can disagree without turning those disagreements into personal conflict. That is something the industry continues to struggle with. Now, let's move on to Fambo. Fambo recently discussed why he did not appear at the summer season event, and his explanation created plenty of discussion. According to Fambo, there had been conversation involving his team, Kemar McGregor, Foota Hype, and Beanie Man regarding the possibility appearance. Fambo explained that there was an understanding around payments and participation, but the situation ultimately did not happen. According to Fambo, there were disagreements surrounding the financial arrangement. Now, once again, that is his account. We were not personally sitting in the room when those discussions happened. So the responsible thing is to say that Fambo is explaining his side of the story. What makes the situation even more interesting is Fambo comments about Beanie Man. He made it clear that he doesn't view Beanie Man as somebody he should be fighting with. In his words, the relationship is more about respecting the hierarchy and history of dancehall. And then Fambo brought religion into the conversation by making it clear that for him, the ultimate king is Jesus Christ. That part is interesting because dancehall fans can spend hours arguing over who is the king. But artists themselves sometimes have completely different definition of what that title means. Now let's get to one of the biggest arguments of all, Skillibeng versus Masicka. This has been building for some time and fans are watching carefully to see whether this becomes an actual lyrical confrontation. But Nico Fire stated that there is a bigger question surrounding Skillibeng. Why has not Skillibeng fully separated himself from the Vybz Kartel comparison? The argument is that Skillibeng has openly acknowledged Kartel influence, and because of that, some people believe he has not completely established an identity separate from Kartel shadow. Now, personally, I think there is another way to look at it. An artist can respect and influence without becoming a copy of that influence. Every generation learns from the generation before it. Skillibeng has his own sound, he has his own delivery, his own audience, and he has created records that stand on their own. So the real question is not whether Kartel influenced Skillibeng, the real question is whether Skillibeng can continue building his own legacy. And I think the answer to that question is still being written. Now we come to one of the most sensitive parts of the conversation. There has been online speculation about Little Vybz and the idea of him responding to Masicka. But let's be careful here. A lyrical clash is entertainment, but involving family members in a serious musical confrontation can create a completely different level of pressure. And that is why some commenters believe Cartel would be cautious about putting his son into a situation like that. The argument being made is that if Little Vybz were to directly attack Masicka lyrically, the spotlight would immediately become much bigger because of his connection to Vybz Kartel. Instead of people simply discussing a young artist song, everybody would be talking about Cartel's son entering a major dancehall rivalry. That could bring attention, but it could also bring enormous pressure. So whether Little Vybz actually respond directly to Masicka remains something we have to wait and see. Now, here is where things get even more interesting. One commenter challenged Masicka to call out Popcorn or Black Rhino. And honestly, this is where fans need to remember that calling somebody name does not automatically make a clash better. A clash only works when both artists actually want to participate. So if Masicka does not call a particular artist, that does not automatically mean he is afraid. And if he does call somebody, that doesn't automatically mean he will win. Music is unpredictable. The audience decide, the song decide, the performances decide, and the artists who can constantly deliver under pressure usually get the advantage. But the idea of Masicka directly challenging Popcorn or Black Rhino has obviously sparked discussion because fans love the idea of a major lyrical showdown. So, there you have it, my people. We have Vybz Kartel reminding everybody about his international achievements. We have Mr. Vegas defending his perspective on Kartel contribution to dancehall. We have Jeffrey involved in that wider debate. We have Fambo explaining his side of the summer sizzle situation involving Beanie Man Kemar and Foota Hype. We also have Nico Fire raise questions about Skillibeng, Vybz Kartel, and the way artists position themselves within dancehall. But I want to hear from you. Do you think Vybz Kartel's recent post was simply about him celebrating his achievements, or do you think there was a message behind it? And do you think Masicka should respond to Skillibeng if Skillibeng release another diss track? Let me know in the comments. Make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the Daily Scoop, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss the next dancehall updates. Until next time, big up yourself, stay safe, and remember, let the music speak.